Within each and every one of us, there are processes and potentials that take our perception to dimensional realities of unfathomable beauty and intensity. This is Skull Babylon, and you're about to listen to episode 58 of Paradigm Shift Radio, in which we welcome on our friend Alistar to join in on the adventure as we use our words to point towards these divine moments of truth. Alistar is the bassist and vocalist for the metal band DMT. In addition to discussing his work and the integration of consciousness expanding ideas within any art form, the talk revolved around personal accounts both myself and Alistar have had working with dimethyltryptamine, and how these experiences have affected our perception and drive within this reality. A lot of ground was covered in this episode, and we encourage you to watch the after party hangout in the YouTube link to hear more of the valuable information that was shared. Tonight, we're going to be bringing our good friend Alistar on, and Alistar is the vocalist and bassist for the metal band DMT, facebook.com/DMT Music. So we're going to be hearing what he has to talk about in terms of the metal scene, like metal music, what he works on as being a conduit for conscious art. And conscious art is really something that I'm a big fan of. It's something that I do myself. We are in sync tonight. I was mentioning to Alistar just in the green room, so to speak, that I was getting busy adding all the files, looked up at the clock, and it was 9:06, and that is like my synchronistic resonating number. And tonight on the show, Divine Moments of Truth is what we're going to be talking about. So DMT is the band, the metal band that Alistar is a part of. So the conversation is going to be about divine moments of truth, one of which is the experience of the DMT interaction, and that's something that some of you may not be entirely familiar with, so we'll be going over the basis of that. But before we do that, we're going to be talking a bit about the metal band itself and just some other inspirational creativity in terms of people such as Terrence McKenna and also Alan Watts. Expect to hear a little bit from them later on in the show, so stay tuned, guys. Definitely got a good show lined up. This is a show that we do because it's not something anyone told us to do. It is something that we do as conduits of consciousness itself. I mean, that's what this is, right? This is consciousness doing whatever it can to wake itself up, and that's definitely what we're going to be talking about and doing tonight on the show. So without further ado, I just checked the whole time on Alistar's call info, and it was 6:09. So again, like synchronistic hit. 609 is my resonating number, and again, like the support that we get from that as artists, you know, whether it be like me or anyone else, the support that we get from that is like an energetic vote for consciousness to be able to create even more awesome stuff. Because this is for myself and for Alistar, like we were talking about this before we got the show officially rolling. We were just chatting on Skype, and you know, like we have to be like ambassadors for whatever it is that we carry with us, and we'll be talking about that more tonight, like ambassadors for like the other sides of reality that not everyone has in the forefront of their memory and their current experience in terms of.
Right. I always like I like what Graham Hancock says about like it's a war on consciousness, you know.
Yeah.
So we're speaking for that other spectrum, that other side of reality that, you know, it's just not really carried in the normal everyday paradigm, you know.
Yeah, like the side of reality that we see through the DMT experience, and again, we'll get to that later in the show for sure. It's definitely a side of things that we as a society barely have any words to properly describe it with. In a lot of ways, it's like ineffable. But that is what, again, as ambassadors, that's part of what I feel we are here to do, is to get a piece of that and share it in this tangible world, whether it be through my film or your music or anything else,
right.
or poetry, anything else.
Right.
Yeah, we are.
It's really described best through art and like you said, like through poetry. You know, like Terrence McKenna always says, if the artist can't find the way, then the way cannot be found. You know, because it's like the artists are the ones in society that are kind of probing the edge of reality, you know, versus, you know, most people don't have that opportunity to actually do that. You know, they have commitments and they have to deal with everyday life of, you know, just living and raising a family and so forth. So the artists are sort of like those frontier people that, you know, kind of go kind of where no man has gone before, literally, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, just since you're sort of saying it, like in terms of going and exploring new frontiers, the term psychonaut has always been a preferred term of mine for quite some time. I just remember hearing that because we think about the astronaut, and that's the idea of literally going outwards as much as you can, which is a dimensional shift in itself in terms of perspective. But the psychonaut, the psyche, going into the spirit and the mind in itself, going inwards and blasting off into other realms. And without further ado, I'm bringing Alistar on now. So Alistar, if you're ready, we're going to bring you on to Paradigm Shift Radio. Here we go. Hey, Alistar, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. All right, awesome.
So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Like this is really exciting. I guess the genesis of this came through just Facebook and me seeing some of your awesome posts from way back in the day, and just like getting connected. Just you've been pretty active in the Facebook inspiration side of things.
Yeah, I run a couple pages. I run, besides my band page, which is DMT, I also run a page called The Archaic Revival, and then another page called Alan Watts Wisdom. And then I have a few other small ones that I'm kind of like co-partners with.
For a guy who's been in the metal scene, like, inform us, like, what is the conscious, like, revolution like within the metal scene? At least what it's been like and what it's evolving as. Because that's something you're right in the middle of.
Right. As far as the extreme side, there is quite a few bands that are incorporating consciousness and kind of the psychedelic realm into their music. I know like Korn is about to put out an album, and it's called The Paradigm Shift. So,
okay.
It's like...
Maybe we'll get on the show.
Exactly. There'll be good intro music for you. And there's other bands like Born of Osiris. They use the artwork of Cameron Gray. Everybody knows Tool. They use the artwork of Alex Gray. And, all these bands, they sort of incorporate their own psychonautical experience, into their lyrics. And the message is pretty much the same across the board, which is the same message like all the sages and mystics throughout the ages have always said, as far as consciousness and understanding the self, and it's all been out there already. It's just most of us kind of like ignore it or don't know about it.
Mm-hmm. But if we can just be reminded of how incredibly amazing this is and how amazing it is to like fall in love and to have people to care about, it just it makes you step back. It makes you take a second to actually like breathe and just. Hopefully people can do that. Hopefully people can just like hear this and just be reminded of that. Because if that's what DMT is encouraging us to do, from my point of view, then that is what I'm encouraging you to do, is just do whatever you can to connect with those divine moments of truth and really, really appreciate where you're at and where you're going and the people you're experiencing it with. So.
And, as far as like, promoting it to other people, I really, as far as the awareness is, you really got to look at that spectrum of experience, because I think some people are not going to be ready for that confrontation with the unconscious. So, I did it 2 times. The first time I did it was just like yours. I felt so cosmic, divine. I felt connected. I felt great. Everything was beautiful. I was happy to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt all this like knowledge just kind of rolling through me, and then, but the second time I did it, I decided to do a heroic dose, because first time I did it, this voice that I was connected with sort of lured me, telling me I needed to do it again. So the second time, I'm like, I'm going to do it all the way. I did a complete hit and held it the right amount of time. I had done all the research. I knew what a heroic dose was, and it tricked me because it was not gentle and divine the second time. The moment I laid back, it actually it had a more sinister feel to it, and it told me, you fucked up, game over, you're dead. And then I instantly went through this whole process of where I felt I had actually died. So I was actually going through the feelings and remorse, and I had like this life review kind of flash before me, like everybody I knew in my life just like flashed before me like a deck of cards right in front of me. And then like it was like gone, like just I can't even describe that feeling, but just that feeling of not being able to come back, messed up. I have my kids, I have a family, I have a wife, I got all my friends and this band and everything, and I messed up because I wanted to look too deep, and it just took me on this journey that I can't even, it's so hard to describe. It was like cut into different sections and varying in degrees and visions, that I'm actually writing a book about it called The Divine Moment of Truth. And it's because it's just so powerful, all these different aspects that I experienced through it. But the first phase, as I was going through this cosmic thrust where I felt like, I was doing that life review, and it was like I was just dissolving into this just pure energy, just fire and bright, powerful energy, and it almost like you black out, sort of like when you're going to sleep at night and you kind of black out into your dream, and then it kind of just blacked out into something else, and that's when I was like going through all these like spirals and portals, and just you see all these like tentacles and ferns, and it felt like being like you're in the ocean. Like I was just like deep, like I've just fallen deep in some ocean, and you just feel all the currents moving and everything's swaying, and it's just connected. And then there was like this huge, giant purple lotus that just started appearing before me, and there was like all these like Tibetan goddesses embedded within it, like in a fractal form, and she was like whispering to me, trying to connect with me, and it's like, what do you do with that, It's like, I'm just, you're just there, just this powerful energy right there, and it's just like I remember it tried to reach out to me and connect with me, and it got this feeling of like, did you get like when water goes up your nose, like that. And I can remember like jerking away, in a sense, and like I was pulling away, and it's like, well, what do you do with that, It's just, it's so weird and bizarre, but the way she was whispering to me and connecting with me, she was like, yes, you're doing good. Like, then she goes, pull me through. Like, she was telling me to pull her through. It was so weird, and, it's just bizarre. And then just like being in the ocean, like when currents crash, I remember that scene just crashed away, and then boom, there was this vision of Buddha right in front of me. It was like just his head, like far up ahead of me, like almost like looking down onto a football field in a stadium. And then like all these symbols were like all around his head, like all these little quantum symbols. And I remember you just staring at it, and then poof, and then I'm back into that lotus, and then it just transforms and slowly starts to dissolve. And I can remember suddenly it started to turn into my wife, who was trying to wake me up from what she thought, I was going through something really extreme.
Yeah.
But from the outside point of view, I was actually it looked like I was struggling with something, and I was, that it was powerful. So, it's really good to hear these other experiences, because it's not all light, love and light. There are it's really powerful, and you really got to look into it, And you have to make sure, I literally felt like I got that ego shamanic death rebirth experience, because even after I started to wake up, it took like 10 minutes. I felt like I was still in between realms, kind of stuck. I saw like my wife in full spirit form. I could see the beauty of her, and it was pretty awesome. I could see like the glow of her heart. I could see like this billowing around her skin, like translucent.
Like the actual aura.
Her skin was like translucent, sort of like a jellyfish. You could kind of see through it, and it's pretty powerful. And just there looking at her, I'm just like, at that point, I didn't know it was her. It was like, because it was still transforming from, I thought I had died, and I'm just going through this whole process, and there's just this being that's working with me, and she was like trying to wake me up, and I remember like being stuck in loops, or like she was just running away and coming back, and it's really bizarre, and then finally I started, she was reminding me, who I was, and things. It was like a reboot, I felt like I got a reboot, like everything got erased for a moment, and I slowly started to build it back up again. And it took a long time. It took days to really get my full senses restored. But ever since then, I'm still connected to that experience,
Yeah.
It's still carrying it with me, it's still there.
Yeah. go ahead.
And poetry, you know, I do a lot of writing on my Facebook. I have I do a lot of posts, and a lot of it is that inspiration that comes from that whole process of the experience.
Yeah. Like first of all, thank you for sharing that. I mean, moments like that is very amazing, and is also very personal. In the same way that like sharing a dream is very personal, because that's really again making that connection between the DMT experience and the dream experience. If you do DMT and you're, in this case, similar to what Alistar had done, and taking a, you know, whether it be a heroic dose or whatever works for you, but then closing your eyes, specifically closing your eyes and going into that inner space, that's where you go when you dream. And in the same way, every night when we dream, we have to be like willing to embrace whatever dreams may come our way, because